I think we have all the speakers together, and so I welcome Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special event on ending violence against women, organized by the Trust Fund. And I welcome you on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Trust Fund. And with us today is the Chair of the Board of Directors, Mamakate Doumbia, Baroness Helic from the UK, and our new board member, Minou Tavares Mirabal, Mr. Gochalot Kipanidze and Bilal, Sheikh Bilal are excusing themselves. They won't be able to participate. I first want to introduce the speakers of this event. In particular, we have today the prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, who is our outgoing prosecutor and has introduced as a prosecutor very soon after she started as a prosecutor in 2012, the policy on gender crimes as the first comprehensive prosecution policy in that area. And we are very much looking forward to your contribution, prosecutor. This event was very much initiated by our three female board members.
That's your full
and it is in particular also because of Minou Tavares, who is who just joined the board 6 months ago, and that we are having a very special event today to really commemorate how it came about that the 25th of November is the day of the UN Day of ending violence against women. We, however, start with the hosts of this meeting, as this is also part of the ASP event, and co-hosting are the states of the embassies of Finland and the Dominican Republic. And I first give the floor to the Ambassador Päivi Kaukoranta of Finland, considering that Finland is very strong on women's rights. It is also the state that really strongly supports the Trust Fund's SGBV projects. And the ambassador is here since 2018. She's also the ambassador to the OPCW. Before, Ambassador Päivi Kaukoranta served for 9 years as the Director General for Legal Affairs at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Finland. And I first give the floor to you, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, Madam Prosecutor, dear board members, and my co-host, Ambassador Piña Contreras, dear guests. It is a great pleasure for Finland and to me personally to co-host today's event on ending violence against women and girls under the Rome Statute system. Realizing gender equality and promoting and protecting and fulfilling the rights of all women and girls is a priority indeed for Finland. We have to take action to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls everywhere, and we must end impunity and help the victims of such crimes. Attitudes and behaviors need to change, but we also need justice systems that ensure that no act of violence goes unpunished. And the ICC was created to end impunity for the perpetrators of most heinous crimes and to bring justice and alleviation to their victims. In doing so, the role of the ICC prosecutor is of utmost importance, and her policy, as was referred by the moderator. The work of the Trust Fund for Victims is also a central part of the Rome Statute system. Finland is a long-standing supporter of the trust fund and has provided multi-annual contributions earmarked to sexual and other forms of gender-based violence. And addressing the needs of victims of such violence, often women and girls, has been a special priority for us. Against our experience, it's easy for me to say that these activities can make a difference, and I would like to encourage also others to consider contributing to the trust fund. We have excellent speakers and exciting stories and videos to see, so I will not take much of our time in this beginning, but I would like to share very briefly some recent examples of the activities for which our earmarked multi-annual contributions are used. Our current multi-annual contribution started in 2017 and aims at delivery of targeted assistance to victims of sexual and gender-based violence in the countries of sub-Saharan Africa. And our last installment this year has been allocated to support two trust funds projects in northern Uganda, providing comprehensive physical and psychological rehabilitation and medical referrals for victims, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has imposed restrictions and has thus put an extra challenge in the implementation of the project this year, but it has started in any case. And furthermore, our funding has been allocated to two trust funds project in Côte d'Ivoire, providing comprehensive physical and psychological rehabilitation and material support to victims, including survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. These victims are identified at the beginning of the program, and adequate support will be provided to them according to the specific impact of the harm they have suffered and to their needs. These activities are planned to continue throughout next year. In addition to Finnish funding, these projects are co-funded from the trust funds, common basket funds, and other earmarked contributions. Together, we can make it happen. And with these introductory remarks, I would like to leave the floor to the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Highly appreciated. We will also hear today 4 extraordinary women on video. Mrs. Akello Brenda, Mrs. Aloyo Lansi, Mrs. Christine Lake, and Gras from Uganda, from projects financed also by Finland, and they will speak directly about their experiences through video messages. I now give the word to Ambassador Guillermo Piña Contreras, who is also an outgoing ambassador for the Dominican Republic, and he has been in The Hague for many years representing the Dominican Republic, and has been before the ambassador of the Dominican Republic to Argentina, as well as to France and other Monaco and other areas here in the European Union. And he has been a professor very deeply involved in the history of the Dominican Republic. And we will all get to know much better today how important the experience of the Dominican Republic is for the fight to end violence against women. Ambassador, please. We will have consecutive translation of the French speech delivered by the ambassador. Ambassador, you are not yet unmuted. On ne peut pas vous écouter, pas encore. Ah oui, c'est bon.
Maintenant, oui. Bon, bonjour, Madame l'ambassadeur de Finlande. Bonjour, Mino Tavares Mirabal. Bonjour, Olga Herrera Carbucia. Tous les deux compatriotes. Pour moi, c'est un honneur présenter en tant que membre du conseil de direction du Fonds fiduciaire d'aide aux victimes de la Cour pénale internationale. Avec Mino Tavares Mirabal, on a envié amitié derrière nous. Je me souviens quand j'étais nommé ambassadeur pour la première fois, Minou était vice-chancelier chargé de politique extérieure du ministère des Relations extérieures de la République dominicaine. Après, mais c'est pas ça
From
qui
the
nous a...
interpreter, please, could the ambassador be reminded to
oui,
pause for interpretation?
Excuse me, yes.
Oui, merci.
Yeah, I would like to say good afternoon to the ambassador of Finland. Good afternoon also to Madame Tavares Mirabel, and good afternoon to Olga, who are all compatriots of mine. And Madame Tavares recently joined the Trust Fund for Victims Board of Directors, and we have a friendship going back a long way, because at the time that I occupied my former position, she was Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Minou Tavares Mirabal, un lourd passé historique derrière elle. Elle est la fille, comme on sait très bien à Saint-Domingue, de Minerva Mirabal et de Manolo Tavares Justo. Minerva a été tuée en 1960, le 25 novembre 1960, par la dictature de Trujillo, ainsi que ses deux sœurs, Patria et María Teresa. À partir de là, le nom Mirabal a eu une très grande renommée en République dominicaine pour sa lutte contre la dictature de Trujillo. À la mort de Trujillo, le père de Minou, Manolo Tavares González, a continué la lutte de sa femme avec le mouvement 14 de junio, en commémoration des Dominicains qui ont débarqué en République dominicaine pour renverser la dictature. 3 ans après la coup d'État contre Bosch.
Once again, interpreter has to interrupt.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
As I was saying, Miss Mirabel Tavares is a historical figure in the Dominican Republic, and their family came to prominence in 1960 when there was the dictatorship of Mr. Trujillo. In the Dominican Republic at the time, her father was part of the resistance movement, and which was fighting to bring down the dictatorship of Trujillo. And after the death of Mr. Trujillo, her father, Mr. Tavares González, continued the fight together with the movement known as the 14th June movement.
Bon, mais la mort de la mère de Minou Tavares, ainsi que la mort de ses sœurs, Patria et María Teresa, a donné aux Nations Unies l'idée de proclamer le 25 novembre de chaque année comme le jour international de la non-violence contre la femme.
But however, the death of Minou's mother, as well as the death of her sister, Maria Teresa, led the UN to declare the date of the 25th of November as the day of the fight against violence against women.
Finalement, je crois que Minou Tavares Mirabal en tant que fille de victime de la violence d'État. Elle va faire un très bon travail au fonds fiduciaire d'aide aux victimes de la Cour pénale internationale. Minou Tavares Mirabal a été, dans son travail en tant que parlementaire, très dédié aux causes humanitaires.
And lastly, I would like to say that Ms. Minou Tavares, who herself has been a victim of state violence, will do a fantastic job as a member of the board of directors of the Trust Fund for Victims of the ICC. Especially considering the fact that as a parliamentarian, she was very, very devoted to humanitarian causes.
Je vais finir avec une petite pensée pour Felipe Micheletti, qui nous a quittés de façon tragique l'année dernière. Et je souhaite à Minou un bon travail pendant sa participation au comité d'aide aux victimes de la Cour pénale internationale. Merci beaucoup.
I would like to end here by asking us to have a pious thought for Felipe Micheletti, who passed away under tragic circumstances. And I would like to wish Minou Tavares a very, very successful participation in the Trust Fund for Victims of the ICC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your very warm and personal introduction of Minou, to whom I will now give the floor. With respect to Felipe Michelini, I would like to mention that we will have an event on the 10th of December to honor him, and you will be invited for that. I think the invitations have perhaps already gone out. Minou, I will give you the floor. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good evening, my fellow colleagues from the board, and good evening, the ambassadors and the judges and the members of the staff, and good evening in Asia Pacific, in Africa and Europe, and good morning in the Americas. I am very happy to be in this event, my first one with the board of directors of the Trust Fund at the ICC. While I am pleased to be working at the service of the victims of the crimes under the Rome Statute, every day I am reminded that I have taken this position under very unfortunate circumstances. My good old friend, the amazing Uruguayan lawyer and human rights defender, Dr. Felipe Michelini, passed away suddenly last April. His contributions to the Rome Statute and to the Trust Fund and the beauty of his soul will remain with us. I am both humble and feel very responsible in this position of the GRULAC at the Trust Fund. The issue of violence against women is central to the work of the ICC and of the Trust Fund, and it should be a concern for everyone in this world. Why? Women constitute half of the population of the world, and despite the suffering and courage of generations of women on whose shoulders we stand, as late Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, the status of women in society, economy, and politics continues to be marred with inequality, injustice, and violence. 25 years ago, activists from the whole world achieved the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which which has shaped and will continue to shape gender equality and women's movements worldwide. Beijing provides a comprehensive framework for change in 12 critical areas of concern that in fact are centered around violence. What, if not violence, is women without access to reproductive health or body autonomy? What, if not violence, is girls not allowed to go to school? What, if not violence, is women reduced to objects in media? What, if not violence, is harassment of women in their workplace? And then we have the violence that we know as violence. Let's review some numbers from the UN Women. 1 in 3 women and girls experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. 71% of all human trafficking victims worldwide are women and girls, and 3 out of 4 of these women and girls are sexually exploited. At least 200 million women and girls aged between 15 and 49 years have undergone female genital mutilation in 31 countries where the practice is concentrated. But let me go back in time further than Beijing and into my island, Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic. 60 years ago, on a 25th November, my mother, Minerva, and her 2 sisters, Patria and Maria Teresa, and their driver, Rufino de la Cruz, were assassinated under the orders of the dictator of my country, Rafael Trujillo. The butterflies, las mariposas, as they are worldwide known, and their husbands were activists for democracy in the Dominican Republic. They suffer a brutal death, which the regime tried to cover as a car accident. The marks left in the bodies told another story. Their bodies were used as a battlefield. Not only would the dictator crush rebellion, he was certainly not going to allow rebellion by women. In 1999, the date of the murder of the mariposas was declared by the UN General Assembly the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Today, a day in the annual 16 days of campaigning for women, let's reflect on what else can we do to end violence against women, violence during peace and during conflict. Let's imagine 3 sides of a triangle with the survivors in the center. In one side, prevention. Prevention of violence relies on legal structures and social transformation. The Rome Statute is a momentous instrument for the historical neglected victims of gender-based violence. It codifies for the first time gender-related offenses, including of a sexual nature, rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, enforced sterilization, and other comparable sexual violence as crimes against humanity and war crimes. Persecution on account of gender is also considered. The statute also provided a term for gender, recognizing its societal contextualization. To reinforce prevention of violence against women, states should implement the Rome Statute in the national provisions. The other side, enforcement. The International Criminal Court and domestic courts should prosecute more widely those who order, who commit, and who allow violence against women. The Taganda conviction at the ICC certainly gives hope to survivors, sexual and gender violence crimes. Sepur Sarco in Guatemala and many other emerging cases are shining lights in our path. But what about the survivors and the harm they have suffered. The third side, reparations and assistance. Victims of sexual and gender-based crimes should be prioritized. We know that victims often do not disclose the harm suffered due to stigma or due to the urgent nature of other more visible wounds or needs in the aftermath of violence. The TFB has an important focus on the harm suffered by women and in particular sexual and gender-based violence. The Trust Fund's projects related to sexual or gender-based violence for 2020 is over euro 3.73 million across 15 projects in Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The pilot project approved in CAR will be exclusively focused on sexual violence victims. Similarly, the new assistance program in Côte d'Ivoire will have a clear focus on sexual violence and gender-based victims. And we await the first reparation order in the Taganda case, where survivors of SGBV will be central beneficiaries. But we need to go beyond assistance and ensure meaningful reparations, addressing the harm suffered by women through physical and psychological assistance is central to rehabilitation. But we should not stop there. Specialized and long-term medical care is also often needed, and help should also consume, not when it may be too late to prevent complications of survivors. And we still need to go beyond. Reparations and assistance programs should articulate victims' needs on the basis of rights and should ensure effective participation of survivors. Reparations and assistance programs should also meaningfully subvert existing gender hierarchies and inequality. Programs should consider the importance of mobilization and engagement, and it is proven how it can help individual transformational and can also have an impact on social and political transformation. Agency, capacity of engagement and mobilization are centerpieces to generate political will. And political will is essential for decisive actions that recognize the survivors and guarantee the non-repetition of these crimes. It is, in the end, a full circle between prevention, accountability, and meaningful reparations. But we must address the issue of violence against women holistically and at all levels. This takes me to the final point on the need to address the issue of violence against women holistically. The trust fund established by the Rome Statute is an important instrument. On behalf of the board, I am grateful for all the voluntary contributions received, but our financial support should come from all states parties, not only a few. And those with more capacity could contribute more. This will allow us to reach more victims. States parties should also, in line with their Rome Statute obligations to prevent and punish those crimes at the national level. And no country is exempt of this cancer. It is important to remember. Institutions working on justice and accountability also need to do their part by ensuring that they do not contribute to the culture of violence. There is a lot to do ahead of us, but there is no other option. Ending violence against half of the world population is, after all, the key recipe to the lasting peace we all aspire to. I look forward to your support to strengthen the role that the Trust Fund can play in this regard, and to continue the conversation, as Francisca announced let's hear from the survivors themselves. Gracias, muchas veces.
Thank you very much for this very strong call for action and a very clear voice. It's fantastic. We will hear the voices of Mrs. Akello Brenda and Mrs. Aloyo Lanzi.
I am Akello Brenda. I live in Laguti sub-county and I am 30 years. I was abducted by the LRA and stayed in the bush for 2 years. I was forced to commit a lot of atrocities against my will, like rape, killing people, and walking on dead bodies. When I escaped and returned home, I was stigmatized and had no friends. And one day, I heard of TPO and TFV. We were grouped and cancelled. Later on, I opened up and was taken to the hospital and treated because of the abdominal pain resulting from the multiple rape. As I talk, I am healed and now relieved. I am encouraging TFV to continue supporting other people with similar problems in the community. I urge other people to come out openly so that they can be supported. I am now healthy and free because of the psychosocial support which I received. I am Aloyo Lanzi. I was abducted by the LRA in the year 2002. And the LRA amputated me on the left hand side. As a result, brutally hit by the gun. Not only that, I was raped by different men. When I came back to the community, I got married. When I went to my home, I was so much stigmatized because of my disability. As a result of that, my husband told me to go back to our home. Not until I went to an organization called TPO, I got the social worker who started counseling. And as I talk, there is a great improvement in my husband's behavior. And life is improving with support from TPO. I encourage other community members with the similar problems such that TPO and TFV continue offering support to bring change to this community. I'm so delighted with the support received from TPO and TFV. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our partners, our implementing partners in the field that have prepared these videos with subtitles and sent them to us within a very short time frame to support this event. I would now like to give the floor to the prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda. Fatou Bensouda has been the Minister of Justice and Attorney General in the Gambia, and worked at the ICTR, International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, before joining as the Deputy Prosecutor in 2004, the ICC. And I still remember that because it made me so happy at the time to have a woman and an African woman joining as the Deputy Prosecutor at that time. And in 2012, Fatou Bensouda was elected as the prosecutor, the first female prosecutor of the ICC. And her term now comes to an end in 2021. I'm very grateful that you are joining this event after the call of Minou for action. I think you will show what you have been doing and tell about the fight to end violence from your perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francisca, for that introduction. Distinguished members of the board, Your Excellencies, their colleagues, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure indeed to be here with all of you today in this virtual setting. At the outset, I would like to thank Ms. Mama Koite Doumbia, the chair of the board of directors of the Trust Fund for Victims, as well as Peter Deban and his team, Francisca and others, for convening this important meeting to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, a topic that you all know is very close to my heart. I am particularly honored to share the floor with Ms. Minou Tavares Mirabal, who this year joined the board of directors of the Trust Fund, and whose family story is indeed at the origins of today's commemoration. And indeed, there is always a profound story behind a commemoration, behind a movement, behind a testimony, and behind all of us. Most humbly, my own story starts in my native home, the Gambia. From a young age, as court clerk, I witnessed countless courageous women, survivors of sexual and domestic violence, relieve their ordeals through the court system. And this experience, early in my youth, triggered my drive to contribute to the advancement of the law, to alleviating their suffering, to stand for what is right, and to champion the rights of the vulnerable. As ICC prosecutor, I hear daily about unspeakable acts of violence and how these acts of violence affect women and girls in unimaginable ways. For example, in the Taganda case, one witness said, "I had lost all my dignity. At that time, I was 13 years old. I was still a child, so I felt that I no longer had any dignity left. I hate myself. Even now, I cannot meet any man who would marry me. I had found a husband, but after what people were saying about me, he abandoned me. I have nightmares in which see the soldiers come and take me by force and take me out." So these are thoughts that I keep having constantly. Sometimes, even when I see the soldiers on the road, I am afraid. I am extremely afraid. I would want that the ICC assist me and administer justice to me. Justice must be done. The criminals have to be punished. I would like them to assist me so that I can go back to school, and that they should be able to build a house for us, given that our house was destroyed. This is one of the many brave accounts my office has heard in the course of the proceedings. Indeed, this kind of statements are not the exception. Rather, they are sadly the norm. My office has included charges of rape as crimes against humanity and/or war crimes against 16 accused. The situation of women and girls around the globe is concerning, with the devastating effects on society and local communities. 2 years ago, on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres declared, "Violence against women and girls is a global pandemic." Women and girls are doubly exposed to the pandemic effects. The United Nations and others with authority on the matter have issued alarming reports on the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 crisis on women and girls. For instance, sexual abuse and exploitation of teenagers have been reported to be worse during the national lockdown measures in the DRC, in Burundi, and Uganda. And beyond the struggles for women and girls, there is another very alarming problem. And I refer to the unprecedented challenges that the rule of law and the fight against impunity for atrocity crimes currently face. These include the attacks and threats, notably by the US administration in relation to the court's exercise of its independent mandate, including in the form of economic sanctions imposed on myself and a senior member of my staff. In this troubling context, today's occasion offers a truly unique opportunity to bring some light by joining our voices and redoubling our common and mutually reinforcing efforts to respond collectively to this negative trend. Together, we can address the plight of women and girls through the vector of the law, with the ultimate aim of ending violence against them. Historically, sexual and gender-based crimes have been shrouded in a culture of silence and impunity, and most unacceptably seen as inevitable consequences of war and conflict. This, you will agree with me, is unacceptable. We must respond, and the Rome Statute system gives a powerful tool to do so. The creation of the ICC was a significant step forward in advancing international law. The Rome Statute is unique because for the first time, the term gender was used and defined in an international criminal law instrument, thus becoming an element of crime in positive law. More specifically, the Rome Statute is the first international instrument which expressly includes various forms of sexual and gender-based crimes, including rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, enforced sterilization, and other forms of sexual violence as underlying acts of both crimes against humanity and war crimes committed in international and non-international armed conflict. When I assumed the role of ICC prosecutor in 2012, I committed to enhancing the investigation and prosecution of sexual and gender-based crimes and crimes against and affecting children. As a first act in fulfilling that commitment, the systematic investigation and prosecution of sexual and gender-based crimes and crimes against and affecting children was elevated to a strategic goal for the office. Soon after, in June of 2014, I issued a comprehensive policy on sexual and gender-based crimes, which was conceived with the aim to bring clarity, transparency, and awareness on the application of the legal framework regarding sexual and gender-based crimes by my office. On the heels of the success of the SGBC policy, my office also issued a policy paper on children in and affected by armed conflict in November of 2016. These two policies reaffirm the commitment of my office to pay particular attention to these serious crimes, provide clarity and direction to staff in the interpretation and application of the statute and the rules at all stages of the office's work in order to effectively address such crimes. Concretely, the implementation of both policies means that we endeavor to consistently gather information concerning SGBC and crimes against or affecting children from the initial stage of our internal processes and throughout the proceedings. At the preliminary examination stage, my office has been analyzing information regarding alleged sexual abuses against male and female detainees in Ukraine and Venezuela, as well as various allegations of sexual violence against women and girls in IDP camps in Nigeria. We are also investigating incidents including alleged rapes and other forms of sexual violence in Myanmar in the context of the alleged deportation of the Rohingya. Also, on the strength of the policies in practice, we achieved success in court, for example, in the Taganda case in the DRC situation. In July 2019, the trial judges entered a conviction of sexual violence committed by perpetrators against members of their own armed group for the first time in the history of international criminal law and indeed international humanitarian law. And this case demonstrates our willingness to make use and indeed push the envelope of the law to protect women and children in armed conflict. In another trial case against Mr. Dominic Ongwen relating to the Uganda situation, children were abducted to be conscripted into the ranks of the Lord's Resistance Army as child soldiers and domestic servants and forced to act as sex slaves or forced wives. This case is the first where we have charged forced pregnancy, including an aspect of crimes against children often overlooked, boys and girls who are conceived as a result of sexual violence. The judgment in the case will be delivered on the 4th of February, 2021. A final in-court example is the ongoing trial against Mr. Al-Hassan in the Mali situation. Charges include his alleged participation in the policy of forced marriages, which victimized the female inhabitants of Timbuktu and led to repeated rapes and sexual enslavement of women and girls. Boys and girls in Timbuktu were also deprived of their fundamental rights in the course of a campaign of persecution on religious and gender grounds. From the initiation of an investigation, my office will seek to gather evidence to build a solid case against the most responsible for these very serious crimes with a view to holding them accountable. Ensuring conviction is as important an important component of this response under the Rome Statute system, as convictions trigger the reparations mechanism under the Trust Fund for Victims. The policy is also intended to contribute to the ongoing development of international jurisprudence regarding these crimes and to serve as guidance for domestic jurisdictions to initiate investigations and prosecutions with a view to ending violence against women and girls. But we cannot do this work in isolation. The court and my office engage with states parties, the United Nations and its agencies, NGOs, and other relevant entities, including, of course, the Trust Fund for Victims, with a view to fostering partnerships and cooperation to jointly ensure accountability and redress for victims of atrocity crimes.
Has joined the meeting.
Civil society is also of paramount importance in preventing and addressing violence against women and girls. International and local NGOs are often the first to respond to incidents, providing invaluable documentation of crimes, as well as significant medical, psychosocial material, and legal support to victims. My office interacts with civil society and NGOs at all stages of its activities in the independent exercise of its mandate, and these interactions have provided valuable contributions in the development and implementation of our policy papers. We all have a role to play, and it is only through our common efforts that we can hope to provide an appropriate response to end violence against women and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, it has been 20 years since the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, the first in a series of UN resolutions calling for the inclusion of women's needs, voices, and perspectives to prevent and resolve conflict and to build sustainable peace. This year, we also celebrate 25 years since the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was adopted, in which the international community reaffirmed its commitment to equal rights and inherent human dignity of women. Women have a unique understanding of the adverse impact that violence has on themselves, their children, and societies. As a result of their experiences and qualities, women as leaders are uniquely placed to ensure that the thread that keeps the fabric of society together is strongly fastened. To temper war and conflict, and indeed to end violence against women and girls, I strongly believe we must increasingly empower women and support women leadership. I will conclude my remarks here by observing that in view of the current pressures, even assault on the global rule-based order, of which the Rome Statute system is a crucial part, the importance of supporting accountability efforts, including the independent work of the court and the Rome Statute system as a whole, cannot be stressed enough. As my mandate as prosecutor nears its end, I will spare no effort to ensure that the fight against impunity for atrocity crimes and those perpetrated against women and girls is not sacrificed at the altar of political expediency. Faced with whatever challenges we may encounter, each of us, within our respective roles, we continue to respond against violence undeterred. Our responsiveness builds on the strength and courage of those survivors, like the one I quoted earlier, who have come forward against all adversity. In the 21st century, violence against women and children is still a stain on our humanity, and it must be eliminated for good. I thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Prosecutor, for this very strong call and also presentation of your work over the many past years and showing really the role of the prosecution under the Rome Statute in ending and fighting against violence against women. Thank you very much. We will turn now to two voices of Mrs. Christine Lake and Gras from Uganda to hear their perspective and view on the trust fund's work and also their own experience.
An mati loket wone ke luonya ni la ke Christian. Ma chiel article ten. Ma te ker ke angwen. Cha mo kena puru pu. Kia war nyik jimi gina atema mere chato ne. Atiki gen ma tera da pe ma te kere. Kar ma andong arwata ki apsi. Gian gu chako mina tam. Munywa tam kera. Achako no bena biru ki kero ni kar put konya tie. Dok tich pa apsi ukonya. Mi achel nywa tam. Mi ario ukonya kitian makumbete anki kere mi. Uloko kuana maduong. Kian gin manopa tiu. Achako tiu ne. Ano konyo beru duong pian kumio tam ni ene ye pia gika ni kwa mamega. Trust fund ka chel ki apsi. Kumio kony ene umio wan kumerwati kian dana mawatia ila wich.
I'm called Grace. I was abducted and abused by Coins rebels. They raped and inserted sticks in my genitals. This left me depressed and in severe pain. I did not get help from government hospital or elsewhere. This was before I joined this project run by Health Right International. I thank God for bringing the TFV project to give us assistance. I first received psychotherapy. When my heart and mind were settled, they took me to hospital and had me operated. Today I feel fine. The pain has gone away and I feel happy. I am able to carry out my daily chores normally. The project is important because it helps to eliminate physical pain and mental health problems caused by the war. Secondly, it helps to prevent domestic violence between men and women. And thirdly, it gives medical assistance to poor people who do not have the money to pay hospital bills. So I request this project to continue assisting people, and I pray that God blesses the staff and their families. I'm Grace, and I'm grateful.
To conclude our session with, after these very strong contributions of today, I give the word to another fighter for the rights of women, Mama Koité Doumbia, our chair of the board, for concluding remarks. Mama, c'est à vous de faire une conclusion de notre réunion. Merci beaucoup.
Voilà. Bonjour tout le monde. Merci pour le secrétariat pour avoir initié cette activité pendant ces 16 jours d'activisme. De la traduction.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the Secretariat for having done all the organization for making this event possible.
Je voudrais remercier les personnalités qui se trouvent autour de ce panel, la procureure Fatou Bensouda pour son charisme, son engagement sur ces questions de violence sexuelle et sexiste, surtout dans les périodes de conflit.
I would also like to extend my thanks to all the great personalities of today, for example, Fatou Bensouda for her commitment in working with all these SGBV crimes, particularly during times of conflict.
Je voudrais aussi remercier ici les ambassadeurs de Finlande, l'ambassadeur de Dominicaine, de la République dominicaine, et toutes les personnalités, les juges que j'ai retrouvés autour de cette table pour avoir participé à ce side event.
Equally, I'd like to extend my warm thanks to the Ambassador of Finland and the Dominican Republic, as well as all the judges and others present for this side event.
Je voudrais aussi féliciter tous nos partenaires d'exécution qui sont sur le terrain, les représentants du fonds qui se trouvent en RDC, en Ouganda. Je vois Bartel qui est là, je vois la jeune Forgue qui est là, qui se trouve sur le terrain. Bon, je vois le nom de notre collègue aussi qui se trouve en Centrafrique. Tous ces partenaires, tous ces membres du staff qui se battent corps et âme pour vraiment mettre en place des programmes d'assistance et des programmes de réparation.
I also want to thank all our partners on the field, and I see some of them today. I see some of our staff members from Uganda. I see Bertel is here and other young people, and also some names from people coming from the Central African Republic. I want to thank all these members of staff and our partners there who help us in this fight and offer assistance and reparation.
Je remercie aussi tous ceux qui ont voulu s'associer à ce side event, qui partagent ce que nous sommes en train de faire et qui aujourd'hui peuvent nous aider à élargir notre voix à d'autres niveaux pour accompagner le travail du fonds.
Equally, I would like to help all those who have helped us contribute to the side event and are here and share our objectives and enlarge the field and the horizon in which we operate.
Je voudrais dire, après ce que Fatou a dit, Minou ont dit, par rapport à la situation des femmes et des filles, particulièrement dans les zones de conflit et dans les domiciles, c'est-à-dire les violences conjugales, les violences qui sont exercées sur les femmes à travers le monde. De plus en plus, le corps de la femme est devenu comme un jouet.
Having heard what Fatou has said in Minu as regards the situation of women and girls, particularly in conflict zones, and also, for example, domestic violence against women, the body of a woman has become something which is now in danger.
C'est grave la situation que nous vivons dans les pays, particulièrement de plus en plus, excusez-moi de prendre l'exemple sur l'Afrique, qui en Ouganda, en RDC, au Kenya, au Mali, en Centrafrique, etc., où le conflit se fait sur le corps de la femme.
The situation is extremely serious in many countries, and I'm sorry to say, for example, Africa, if you look at countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mali, the Central African Republic, amongst others.
Le fonds au profit des victimes a deux mandats, le mandat de réparation et le mandat d'assistance.
The Trust Fund for Victims seeks support for its mandate, both in assistance and reparations.
Nous vivons de contributions volontaires des États partis et encore des fondations, alors que nous avons des millions de victimes dans les bras.
We fundamentally rely on voluntary contributions to do our work, whereas there are millions of victims who do need our support.
Les États doivent prendre la responsabilité dans la promotion et de la protection des citoyens et aussi de leurs victimes.
Our states must assume responsibility in protecting these people who are citizens and victims who need our help.
Mais si vous voyez les témoignages, si vous avez entendu les 4 témoignages de ces victimes en Ouganda qui ont témoigné de souffrances physiques et de souffrances morales qu'elles ont reçues et de la stigmatisation, vous pouvez imaginer l'ampleur de ces violences sur ces populations souvent vulnérables.
If you just listened to the 4 victims that we've just heard from Uganda and heard about both their physical and moral suffering, as well as the stigmatization that they suffered, this will understand the scope of the violence that these women are facing.
C'est pour dire que la charge, elle est lourde. La charge doit être partagée par toutes les populations, par tous les États et par toutes les institutions qui ont en charge de donner une suite, de donner réponse à ces souffrances.
We have a heavy responsibility, a heavy duty, which must be shared by all peoples, by all countries, and all institutions in relieving the situation.
Je ne veux pas beaucoup tergiverser parce qu'il est presque l'heure pour beaucoup de gens. Juste dire que nous voulons nous avons besoin de travailler pour la visibilité du Trust Fund, pour tout ce que nous faisons sur le terrain avec l'appui des États partis, avec l'appui de certaines bonnes volontés.
I see the time is running out, so I'll be short, but I want to stress the importance for us to have greater visibility so that our actions reach a broader audience.
Nous avons besoin de soutien politique et nous avons besoin de soutien financier.
We need both financial and political support.
Nous avons des programmes actuellement au-delà de l'Ouganda et de la RDC. Nous avons des programmes qui sont orientés vers la Côte d'Ivoire, qui sont orientés vers le Mali, qui sont orientés vers la Centrafrique, qui sont orientés vers la Géorgie et le Kenya. Nous avons besoin de beaucoup de soutien politique, mais aussi beaucoup de soutien financier.
We do right now have these programs running in Uganda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but we are also looking at projects in the Ivory Coast, in Mali, in the Central African Republic, in Georgia and Kenya. And for that, we do need both political and financial support.
Les programmes que nous mettons en place, c'est des programmes importants, c'est des programmes de longue durée, c'est des programmes qui aident à la réhabilitation physique, psychologique, mais aussi matérielle des vivants et des survivantes.
These programs are very important and they are long-term projects, and we hope that they assist in the rehabilitation in all its areas, be it material, psychological or other.
Et c'est pourquoi nous invitons nos partenaires pour qu'ils sachent qu'il faut de la diligence sur la mise en œuvre des programmes. Il faut de la diligence pour la prise de décision. Il faut aussi un accompagnement technique et un accompagnement surtout politique de la part des États parties du statut de Rome.
And that's why we urge all our partners to be aware of what's going on and to exercise due diligence in the programs and the decision making, but also in technical matters and political issues in helping us bring forward these programs.
Parce que le travail que nous faisons, c'est d'aider aux victimes de sortir de leur statut de victime à actrices de leur propre reconstruction, de leur propre développement et de leur permettre de participer à la reconstruction et surtout la paix.
Because the work we do offers hope to the victims to move on and to build a new life and fully participate in their future.
Et je voudrais m'arrêter là pour remercier Fatou pour tous les documents qu'elle a eu à développer pendant son mandat en tant que procureur. Et surtout, c'est des documents qui sont relatifs à comment lutter contre les violences faites aux femmes et comment elle a demandé à ce que les enquêtes soient accélérées sur les cas de viol, les cas de violence exercées sur les femmes et les filles, surtout dans les zones de conflit.
I'm going to stop now, but I would like, first of all, to thank Fatou for the work she has done in preparing documents as a prosecutor, particularly documents relating to violence against women, to speeding up investigations in cases of rape and other atrocities for women and girls.
La justice internationale ne sera un succès quand on va lutter contre l'impunité.
International justice will truly be a success once we fight against all types of impunity.
Et aujourd'hui, nous avons besoin de plus de volonté politique de nos États. Nous avons besoin d'un ordre mondial beaucoup plus juste pour lutter contre les crimes. C'est surtout ces graves crimes qui sont en train de s'exercer sur les populations, surtout les populations civiles dans nos pays.
Today, we need a greater political will from all our states. We need a world where there's a greater degree of justice to fight against these heinous crimes, particularly against crimes committed against civilian populations.
Les femmes doivent être actrices de leur propre participation aux instances de prise de décision et la résolution 1325 du Conseil de sécurité, comme Fatou l'a dit, la plateforme d'action de Beijing, c'est des instruments qui ont été ratifiés, soutenus par nos États. Il s'agit juste de les mettre en œuvre au profit du bonheur du monde, surtout du bonheur des femmes et des filles.
We must do all we can to support women to bring this about so that they play a more active role in decision making, and we must also support the resolutions of the Security Council to bring this about, which will ultimately lead to a better and happier world, and also a better and happier world for women.
Je voudrais donc remercier tout le monde, Francisca pour avoir organisé ce side event, tout le secrétariat, Peter de Ban, Maureen, Anisora, Mariana, toute l'équipe du staff qui ont vraiment imaginé et surtout réalisé cette table ronde qui nous a permis de mettre en avant la situation des femmes et des filles, ces questions de violence qui sont exercées. Et aujourd'hui, comment mettre en avant le rôle et la place de la justice internationale pour lutter contre ces violences basées sur le genre.
And I also would like to thank all those, Francisca, for example, for making this side event possible, together with all those involved in the Secretariat, Urban, for example, in fact, the entire team for making it possible so that we can highlight all these atrocities and there's violent situations which occur and the importance of the role of justice in fighting against these heinous crimes against women.
Je termine par l'encouragement à Minou, notre collègue qui est venu après la perte cruelle de notre ami et collègue Philippe, paix à son âme, qui est venu intégrer cette dimension de perspective genre, surtout des questions de violence sexuelle et sexiste dans le travail que nous avons toujours fait, mais qui a augmenté la vision, la visibilité sur ce travail. Merci beaucoup, Minou, pour avoir mis en avant cette question, cette thématique pendant cette session.
And finally, I would like to encourage and thank Minu, who has taken over after the sad death of Felipe, for adding this dimension relating to sexual and gender-based crime. Minu has done a lot to increase the visibility of these sexual and gender-based crimes. So thank you, Minu, for doing this.
Merci à toute l'équipe, merci à vous tous, à tous les invités, merci Excellence, messieurs les ambassadeurs, mesdames, pour avoir vraiment contribué à cet événement et surtout pour le soutien permanent que vous donnez à notre, au fond, au profit des victimes pour soulager les souffrances des populations qui sont dans la détresse et qui sont désemparées par rapport à la situation dans laquelle elles se trouvent.
And then I would like to thank all of you who are here present, your excellencies, ambassadors, for your sustained support in the work of the Trust Fund and in helping us trying to relieve the pain of all those who are suffering so much.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mama. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much to the prosecutor, to the ambassadors of Finland and the Dominican Republic, to Minu, and to all of you who have been here with us today. We hope to perhaps welcome you next year to a similar event to speak about what has happened in respect of prosecutions, but also of the Trust Fund work in the area of ending violence against women, but in particular assisting women who have suffered such violence. Thank you very much. Wishing you a good evening.